Welcome to the pod. You are listening to What the Reality with me, Cache Roberts, and this is another episode of What's the Reality. On What the Reality, as you can see, we are doing a deep dive on Jersey Shore, the golden tan child on MTV that captivated audiences, pulling insane live ratings, and would soon be a culture phenomenon. We're talking about the Guido lifestyle and the origins, the history of the Jersey Shore. Welcome to the pod. You are listening to What the Reality with me, Cache Roberts, and we are back with another episode. This is What's the Reality on What the Reality. And as you can tell from the title, I hinted at this in my last What's the Reality on What the Reality on the Hills. I did bring up MTV's golden tanned child that would soon captivate viewers with the insane amount of live ratings, which we're going to get into, and essentially became MTV's golden child. I talked about Jersey Shore on the Hills deep dive, so we are doing a deep dive on Jersey Shore. And what's crazy is that I have just been taking a break from like friendship dynamics in general. Jersey Shore was never on my list until I was doing my Hills research, and I was like finding the research like, oh my gosh, like Jersey Shore premiered, towards the end of the Hills. And Jersey Shore, I have a long, extensive list like in my notes of just topics I want to deep dive on. And Jersey Shore was not initially on there. I can tell you some other ones that are on there. I don't know when they're coming, but like The Challenge was on there. America's Next Top Model is on there. The Hills was on there. In terms of like reality shows, aside from Housewives, the Jersey Shore was never on there until I started my Hills research. So it's just crazy because now during all of this as well, Sammi, the sweetest bitch you'll ever meet, just literally got married. Ronnie was not at the wedding. So I just felt like it was the perfect time to do a deep dive on Jersey Shore. Jersey Shore was a culture phenomenon. When it aired, I think I was in 7th or 8th grade. And I'll never forget, I had this friend in middle school. We were both on the volleyball team, and she was obsessed with Jersey Shore. She was obsessed with Snooki. She's probably the one that convinced me to watch it. So much is so we could have something to talk about. Like we were friends. She wasn't like my best friend in middle school, but like we were cool. And she was obsessed with Snooki, and she would like do her hair like her. And this is like a black woman. And she would do the bump it, and she really liked Jersey Shore, specifically Snooki. And I really think it was her talking about it that made me like want to watch it, because I had stuck to America's Next Top Model, while it was airing. And I don't even think I was watching Housewives at that point. I think the only TV as a kid I was really watching was like Disney Channel, iCarly, and then I would watch America's Next Top Model when it was on, which I am excited to do a deep dive on. I don't know when that's coming, but she was probably the person that convinced me to watch Jersey Shore. I think Jersey Shore, if I'm being completely honest, was like one of the first reality shows I watched, besides Housewives. I don't even think I was into Housewives yet in middle school. I may have watched Atlanta every once in a while with my mom, but I was really like America's Next Top Model girl. I didn't get into reality TV until I was in high school. So, fun fact, shout out to her, because she is the one that really like put me on to Jersey Shore. This Snooki girl, these tanned people, these Guidos, as you say, Guidettes, meatballs, all of this stuff. Cabs are here. So much stuff has really, populated and become very famous pop culture um, moments from Jersey Shore. And a lot of people, I don't see Jersey Shore talked about enough in the conversation. When we're having conversations about iconic reality shows, I don't see Jersey Shore talked about enough. Maybe because it's still airing. You know, they're doing the Jersey Shore family vacation. They've been doing that for a while, which I really couldn't get into. I got into it like the first couple seasons, but maybe because it's still airing, it's not really considered and it's like kind of revitalized. But I don't see a lot of people talk about the impact Jersey Shore has had. Like that was a whole moment in TV. Like people wanted the bump its in the hair. People were doing the skunk eyes, you know, the smoky eye shot, in the words of Bethany Frankel to Sonia Morgan. It was this huge clubbing culture, you know, you like fisting, like double fisting. And I do actually remember that being like a thing in middle school, like people like pumping it up, break dance and stuff. Like it was just this whole culture that you wanted to be a part of. So I'm really excited to do a deep dive. It's going to be 2 parts. I don't know fully what my second part's going to entail. As of the first part, it's definitely going to be the origins of, you know, Jersey Shore. I'm going to break down where it even started from, how we found this cast, and I'm also going to break down their salaries starting out, which I don't think is shocking, the news that came out. But I'm also going to I'm just talking about like the origins of Jersey Shore. I think part 2, I do want to touch on some of like the relationships, the friendships, and the power dynamics. But then I also want to talk about like how much Jersey Shore has impacted all of them and like life after Jersey Shore. And I want to talk about like the spinoffs and stuff. So expect for in total the deep dive to be like 2 hours long, obviously, but the first part will obviously be like an hour long. But that's really like the crux of it. I'm still like straightening out what I really want part 2 to be, because part 2 will be coming out the day after Christmas. I know, that fast. And then then it'll be like New Year, and I'll probably like take a break and like re-straighten how I want to do some stuff. But yeah, the next part will be Christmas, and it'll be New Year's. I'll probably take 2 weeks off for New Year's, just in general for What's the Reality. Probably not for Toxic Tuesday, because I feel like New Year's is when stuff pops off the most in pop culture entertainment. I won't be off for Toxic Tuesday, but for What the Reality, I will, because I really want to lead with something strong for the New Year, set the tone, set the pace for what you guys can expect for the pod and the What's the Reality topics. But without further ado, let's hop right into the origins of Jersey Shore. And like I said, in honor of Sammy's sweetheart recently getting married, you know, Ronnie was not there, which I think is appropriate. We're doing a deep dive on an iconic series that competed with other reality shows on Jerzday nights, which I'm sure was like Housewives, but Jerzday nights became a thing. Like it was Thursday night. It did not come on the same night as The Hills, though. But like I said, the ratings were insane that first season of Jersey Shore. Like you would have thought you struck gold, and I guess you really did. And it was soon just become this whole culture phenomenon. It is iconic, and these people's lives changed forever. You could argue that DJ Pauly D has become the most successful versus like anyone else. I personally think that, even versus Snooki. You could definitely say he's become the most popular, and he has maintained relevancy, which is shocking, because when you first see the show, you would think people like Mike the Situation, Snooki, I would even put Ronnie and Sammi would have some sort of relevance today. But the fact that DJ Pauly D has more relevance than all of them combined, I think there's something to be said about that. So let's get into the origins of Jersey Shore. It did premiere on Thursday nights on MTV. This was December 3rd, 2009, like I said. Okay, I definitely was not in middle school. Now that I'm thinking about that. Well, I was 9. Maybe by like towards the end, this friend of mine got me hooked on it. I was not in middle school at 9, was I? Well, I still was, but I wasn't in 8th grade at 9. 8th grade, I feel like you're like 12, right? Like 11, maybe 10. And then you do high school. You start high school like at 14. Yeah, 14, 15, 16, 17. So you start high school like at 15. I think I was like, oh my gosh, there's no way I was in middle school. I was not in middle. I was in junior high when I got put onto it. And they were probably, this aired from 2009 through 2012. So that tracks a lot because at 12, I was definitely in junior high. 12, 13 is when you're in 8th, 7th, 8th grade. Yes. So by the last season, or even the season before, I got hooked onto it. And then I had to go back and watch it from the beginning. I still might need to go back and watch Jersey Shore from the beginning, every single episode, because by the time I had watched it, I didn't even know about Angelina. So maybe that'll be my goal ahead of part 2. There's so much TV on though, guys. Like, I can't even promise you I'm going to be able to even get into it, and I really cannot stand Paramount. That's the only place you can really watch it. But I do need to start it from the beginning because I'm sure I know the crux of stuff, but oh my goodness. So yes, that aired December 3rd, 2009. The show ran for 6 seasons, and that's another thing I will say about reality TV back then. Like, the show would run for X amount of seasons, and then it would end it on a high note, and then even some of these stars would become more famous after these shows were off, or like, you know, I just wish we did that now. I feel like a lot of Bravo franchises are dragged out. Like, I was watching VPR, the reboot, and I just feel like maybe they should have just ended it with the other cast. And honestly, my dislike for VPR currently, the reboot, stems from Vanderpump Villa and knowing how fake and produced that show is. Like, I literally cannot stand Vanderpump Villa. And so now I'm watching VPR and like, it's so fake. I'm like, what happened to just canceling reality shows or just like it ending? Like, reality shows, they don't want to end these days. It's like, what happened to it just ending? Jersey Shore ended after 6 seasons. The Hills ended after 6 seasons. So that airtime was 2009 through 2012. And Jersey Shore was really the opposite of The Hills. It really was, because you got The Hills. You have these stark contrasts. Like, The Hills is like the Malibus, like the Beverly Hills, like literally the hills, the California life. You know, these Playboy bunnies, these blonde girls, you know, huge breasts. You have this very much Beverly Hills lifestyle. Like, you compare it to like Real Housewives of Beverly Hills to Real Housewives of New Jersey. And then you got Jersey Shore, these tan people, like literally passing as black. These people were in tanning booths every single day. You have like the gel and the hair. You have the jeans with the white beater. Like, it wasn't about design labels. It was about going to your closest store, you know, getting you some fab jeans. These people was wearing apple bottom jeans. They wearing baby fat. Like, these people, maybe not baby fat. These people were from Jersey. They represented this Italian Americano American culture, and you really wanted to be a part of it. It was this heavy party scene, but it wasn't as upper echelon or, you know, bourgeois as The Hills was. You had these very different shows on MTV that both competed for ratings. Like I said, The Hills still had high ratings, but they just got very much listen to that deep dive. That by the end of The Hills, by season 3, 4, they had allegations of it being so produced. There was nothing produced or fake about Jersey Shore. These are truly people that represent this Guido lifestyle. And like, what is a Guido? Because I was like, I didn't even know it was a derogatory term towards Italian Americans, Italians in general. It is a derogatory term. And it did the whole Guido, I keep saying Guido, the whole Guidette lifestyle faced a lot of criticism for a lot of viewers and a lot of like I said, Italian Americans. Like, they didn't like this term being so loosely used to describe this group of people because it's so derogatory, depending on who you ask. And it's basically like, I Googled it. Like, what is a Guido? It's actually a demeaning term towards Italian Americans and refers to an Italian American man who is regarded as vain, aggressive, and unsophisticated. So basically, ghetto. Like, it would be the black people's ghetto. That would be something that people would use as ghetto. So it's like, imagine, I mean, I'm a black woman. Imagine a show coming on talking about these women, these men are so ghetto. Like, it would be like, what am I about to watch? Like, what do you mean ghetto? Like, that would be the term kind of, I think, to like compare. at least as it relates to me. So surely if you're Italian American and you are seeing this, they keep saying Guido and stuff, you're like, what is going on? So that's just a little inside info, but that's how MTV wanted to market it. That's what they were chasing. And some really thought that this show would enforce like negative stereotypes about Italian Americans, and it just was going to cause a lot of cultural tension. But nonetheless, the show was a hit. The show premiered with 1.4 million live ratings. And by the season finale of the first season, it got up to 4.8 million live viewers. And to even compare that with The Hills, the largest viewership The Hills would get is 4.8 million. But the fact that Jersey Shore was able to top that within their first season, they were able to top it within their first season by their season finale alone and beat The Hills in general live ratings. Like their whole season ratings was 4.8 million for all those seasons. That's how many viewers The Hills was able to skyrocket to. This was just the beginning for Jersey Shore. The first season, by the season finale, they had 4.8 live viewers. Obviously TV's not the same anymore. People barely got cable. You're not getting those numbers anymore. You're not as a network, especially MTV. We know MTV is closing down in 2026. They're not going to be playing music and stuff anymore. MTV is definitely like gone now. I don't know what's going to happen with Jersey Shore. They cancel Catfish, they cancel Ridiculousness. I don't know what's happening with the challenge over there, if it's going to move over somewhere else. But imagine getting 4.8 million viewers by the season finale. The show was a hit. The first season, it was a hit, and I don't think MTV knew how big of a hit it was going to become. So let's talk about like the origins of Jersey Shore. A lot of people don't even know that Jersey Shore was not even going to be on MTV. It was supposed to be on VH1, and it was actually going to be like this project, this quick documentary maybe style. And it was also that was one thought of it. And then it was also supposed to mimic the challenge at the time. But this was going to be for Italian Americans and these insanely rough, athletic built men. Fun fact, a lot of people also don't know, Jersey Shore was supposed to be an all-male cast. They were specifically searching for Guidos that were buff, tan, and knew how to fist pump. They were trying to mimic, like I said, in a way, the challenge. They really wanted it to mimic that. So thank the Lord they didn't, because we wouldn't have Snooki, JWoww, good thing they didn't. So there's this article that I've found a lot of my research from that I have to shout out. Vulture. It is Jersey Shore, the Oral History, and this was originally published in 2018 for the 10th year special, because it premiered in 2009. So it was supposed to be a 10-year celebration of Jersey Shore. And it really gets into the oral history of Jersey Shore and, just the history and how it came about. So a lot of what I'm about to say coming up is all credited to Vulture, because that's where I found majority of my research. And I also use like Showbiz cheat sheet, People magazine, just some other stuff. But Vulture, honestly, this article, I paid for it because I had a feeling this would unlock a lot of information I needed, and it really broke down like the origins of Jersey Shore, which I was like really grateful for. So let's talk about like this cast, the casting directors. So the casting directors were Duran Ophir. We had Sally Ann Salsono and Dina Cortez. And the cast, let's talk about this lineup of spectacular Guidos and Guidettes that would soon change history. By no shock, Mike the Situation was actually the first to be cast for this show. And I literally think it wasn't called Jersey Shore at the moment. It was actually, I'll get into where they got the name from and who it was actually credited to. But Mike the Situation was actually the first to be cast, and it was marketed. The show was marketed literally like in advertisements and stuff, or like in the paper or whatever, posters, as looking for Guidos and Guidettes. But by the time Mike the Situation is cast, it was going to be an all male cast. And when they saw Mike, who is 27 when he does join the show, and his first season, he's 27. So I don't know if they found him when he was like 25, 26 or whatever, or how long the process took. But when they did cast Mike, they were like, it was going to be an all-male show at that point. They didn't know it was going to become co-ed yet. So Mike literally was the perfect archetype of a Guido. You know, you have this man with this six pack, these overly tan, his muscles alone, and then him calling himself the Situation, the Sitch. Like, this man was perfect for the show they were looking for. So yes, he was the first to be cast. He had the perfect Guido look, and he had already submitted a casting tape. So this was the archetype they were literally building from the show, is men that looked like Mike, essentially. So once the show shifted from just men to then include women, because they were like, we needed romantic sparks. They were like, the men, they're going to be there to be gorgeous to look at, but it's like, what other show do we have that what's going to happen? Like, we need fights and stuff. So that's when they said we need Guidettes. So that's when they started marketing the show as looking for Guidos and Guidettes. And yes, so Mike has submitted a pilot tape for the show because he was an underwear model. So he had already had experience, like, kind of in the entertainment industry. He was trying to be an actor, trying to, he was doing the modeling stuff. And I also think he had, like, another job as, like, a more stable job, but, like, he got fired from it or whatever. So that's when he started underwear modeling. So he had all these, like, pictures and same pictures of himself, like, shirtless and whatever. And apparently his audition tape literally consists of him taking off his top to show the producers his 8-pack. Because I think it's an 8-pack, isn't it? And they were like, bingo, you are literally in. So then we have that whole situation. Literally, they're like, okay, this man is hot. He looks like a Guido. However, do we really want to just watch a show of just hot men and no Guidettes? And that's when they decided after him, yeah, we're going to cast some women for this Guido. And that's when, to no shock, the first woman to be cast on Jersey Shore was Nicole Snooki Polizzi, and she was 22 when she got cast. And what really sold Snooki on, successfully getting it, she showed up to her audition drunk AF, because the audition was apparently at a bar, and she has saw the poster looking for Guidos and Guidettes, and she knows that's kind of like what that is about. It's just been about unapologetically yourself, Italian culture to their, opinion. And it's really just about partying. So she showed up drunk and she was doing cartwheels. No shock, because I'm pretty sure she shows up to the house like that, drunk, doing cartwheels, even though she said she was like nervous. Snooki had a rough start coming into the house, but eventually she became the culture icon and people ended up loving her. But yes, the rest was history. And she also, coming in doing cartwheels and drunk is probably one way to get cast on a reality show. And like I said, there's just nothing fake about these people. Like, this is her personality, 110%. Next up would be Pauly D to get cast. Pauly D was already a DJ. He was DJ Pauly D. He was DJing at a local club in Rhode Island, and he had received a message on MySpace about a casting director liking his look when they showed up at his house to film. They were like, hey, can film with you? And basically a day in the life. Like, Pauly D was doing day in the lives. All of them were, because remember when they first show up, like the cameras show up, it's like showing them going around their house, like before they leave off for the Jersey Shore. These, like, Pauly D did a day in the life before it was popular to do day in the lives. Like, it's like popular to do day in the lives now. On TikTok, we see it on YouTube. Like, get ready with me for the day. Production was like, we need to follow this man home. And guess what Pauly D had in his house that really solidified his future on Jersey Shore? He literally had a $10,000 tanning bed. So this is another Guido archetype. This is a man that literally sets out to be a Guido. Also, Pauly D's hair the infamous hair, and he had like the gel. He had a whole hair routine to get his hair to stand up. Famously, I always say infamously and famously. It was like nothing infamous about it. It's actually famous. He's famously known for the got to be glue gel, which I recently discovered that he was using on Jersey Shore Family Vacation. I didn't know he was using that this whole time. And that's what the girls use, the black women at least, to really secure wigs or certain hairstyles, slick back ponytails and stuff, like certain quick weaves. Like, we use the got to be glue. So the fact that Pauly D, this white man, this Italian man, has been using got to be glue to keep his blowout fresh this whole time. Like, this man was fresh. He was fly. But yeah, that's what really set him apart, is when they walked in and they were like, he literally just mimicked what a Guido does. He just went to the gym, and then he said, all right, I'll show you like a day in my life. It was him going to the gym to tan, and then he went to the club. And then sometimes he would go to the laundromat because he had to look fresh. Like, it's just so simple. Like, a lot of great reality TV is so simple. So yeah, what really set him apart was the fact that he actually had the tanning booth. So they were like, of course. Next up to be cast would be Angelina. She was 23 when and Pauly D was the oldest on the cast. He was 29. So after Pauly D was cast, they were like, at that point, we need younger people. I think Pauly D was like the cutoff because he was the oldest to be cast, because now they had two older men, and then they had Nicole, who's 22. You got a 27-year-old, and you got a 29-year-old, and you got this 22-year-old. They were like, yeah, we're going to skew towards the younger people now. They're going to keep scoring, like, like going towards the younger. So Angelina was 23 when she would be on the show, and her story is pretty simple. I guess casting directors like found her at a nightclub. So the casting directors are really putting themselves in the lifestyle of a Guido and a Guidette. They're like, they're at the nightclubs, they're tanning salons. Like, they were in that area. They were like in Rhode Island, Staten Island. They were in Jersey, wherever they go in Jersey. They were actually like on the boardwalk. They were looking for people in those areas. So I guess she was at a nightclub with friends. Angelina says she was getting over a breakup or something, so she had went out with her friends, agreed to go out with her friends, and she was dancing. And then I guess the casting producer went up to her and was like, hey, like, I think you'd be really good for this show I'm casting for. What would you do if you were in a house full of like 4 men? And I guess what really sold her joining the cast was her saying, oh, I'd probably put whipped cream on them and lick it off. So they were like, okay, we got some romance, possibly. Next up to be cast would be JWoww, who JWoww literally did this as a joke. So JWoww was actually bartending at a local club, and she was in Long Island. So casting producers found her after she was working, and so her nightclub had often hosted castings, and they were actually hosting a casting for VH1's new Paris Hilton, My New BFF. And JWoww's Jenny's friend, it's so weird calling her Jenny, like I call her JWoww. JWoww's friend wanted to be on the Paris show, but there was another casting going on for the Jersey Shore, the little Guidos, the Guidettes. So she was like, I'll literally audition with you, like, as a joke, like, just help you make you feel better. And the casting directors actually liked JWoww a lot, and they were like, oh my gosh, period, can you be on the show? So that's how she was picked. Finally, we get Ronnie, who peaked, and he was 22. Jenny was 23. So like I said, they are skewing now in that middle. Like, they're like, okay, we need to skew younger, because like I said, after Pauly D and Mike, they're like, yeah, we need some younger folks. So then they find Ronnie, who's 24, and he piqued interest of the show. So at this point, it is still supposed to be on VH1 until they find Ronnie. So apparently at some point, in the midst of them finding Ronnie, VH1 has lost the rights to this show. MTV has bought it. They want it now. They just felt like it would have fit MTV audience better, especially given that The Hills was on there. Like, MTV had a younger audience than VH1. And I think MTV was doing, like I said, the challenge at the time. Also at this point, they're not doing the challenge format anymore. This is going to be about it was supposed to be like 6 to 8 roommates that did not know each other. getting to know each other in a Jersey, in just promoting that Jersey lifestyle. So it had really changed once they found Ronnie. Don't know why, but that's what happened. So this is a quote from Ronnie about how he was discovered and asked to be on Jersey Shore. He said, "I was out one night doing whatever I do, I guess being a creep, if you want to say, and a lady approached me. She was like, listen, you fit the criteria for somebody that we're casting on a show. Would you like to try out?" He said he did a video audition. Of course, he acted like a complete crazy person. He took his shirt off and then started fist pumping. And then he said, you know what we do best, acting like maniacs. I'm like, okay, you said it, not me. Okay, at last we do get Vinny. Vinny is 22, and he is the least likely ever to be cast. Like, most likely awards. He is most likely not a Guido. And he saw this survey or something. They were looking for Guidos and Guidettes. It still did not have the Jersey Shore name yet. And he's like, I'm going to fill this out for a joke. I'm not taking it serious. He literally said, I'm probably the least likely, or what is the word? He said, I'm the least looking Guido there is. I am pale. I am white. I'm Italian, but I am pale AF. I don't tan. I don't work out. I am Italian though. And I am from, I can't remember where he's from, and it's going to kill me. I take note of where they're all from later in this episode. And you know what? He applied as a literal joke. He didn't even think he was going to get called back. He was 22 at the time. And the next thing you know, they show up at his house and they want to film him. So like, you know what? I think they realized at that point, they're like, maybe we have enough Guidos. They had Ronnie, they had Mike, the situation, which I think completes like 3 Guidos at least. And then you got Pauly D, this ultimate Guido as well. They're like, you know what? Let's throw in someone that still represents Italian culture, but maybe you're not a Guido. Maybe you aspire to be one, or maybe you think it's all a joke. Maybe you're kind of like the pessimistist. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it balanced out so well. Obviously, Vinny would go on to become best friends with Pauly, and that's that. But he was like, literally, I'm the least looking Guido there is, but I'm going to apply. And he didn't think anything would come from it. So yes, he was 22. And then after Vinny, we do get Sammi. Sammi is 22, also, and she also had a very similar story about, like, just filling out an application. She was with her group of friends. She was 21 at the time. She had just graduated college, and she is actually in Belmar, New Jersey. She was telling this to New York Post, I think. She said, when I was 21, I was in the house with a bunch of my friends in Belmar, New Jersey, and they were passing along this survey to fill out the final weekend at the shore. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is our life. We should just fill it out and then send our picture. And that's basically what I did. And the next thing you know, I was going on interviews, and I actually had no idea what I was really doing until I showed up in the house. So at that point, they were looking for Guidos and Guidettes, like I keep saying. But to say this, Vinny was literally, I meant to say his quote. He said, quote unquote, listen, this is what he put on his survey, and I think that's also what made him stand out. He was like, listen, I like to go to the Jersey Shore, but I don't look like your typical Guido. And then he got a call back. They're like, hey, remember filling that out, whatever. But he said, listen, I like to go to Jersey Shore. That's where the name Jersey Shore came from for the show. Because they're like, this guy likes to go to the Jersey Shore, but he's not a Guido. But like, this is a part of his culture as well. He kind of embodies a Guido's lifestyle. He just don't look like one. And then I think Vinny was a good missing piece to that puzzle. It's kind of like, let's call the show Jersey Shore. And then we also had Sammi, like I said, filling it out as well. And she said they like to go. She said she filled out her final weekend at the shore. So she was at the shore filling this out as well. So that's when we kind of get these hints of like, oh, we're about to come up with a show called Jersey Shore. You know what I mean? Fun fact, because I did forget her. I'm sorry, Dina. I do forget Dina. I forget Angelina because Angelina wasn't really on until Jersey Shore Family Vacation. I do forget Dina though sometimes. Dina was 24 when she actually came on the show. She didn't come on until season 3. And obviously we know Angelina was in and out season 1 and 2, and then eventually would be out, and that's when Dina came in season 3. Fun fact though, Dina actually did try out the first season and actually had to turn it down. She actually did get it. She was supposed to come to the shore the first season, and she did not get it. She did not, or she did get it, but she had to turn it down because she had a family emergency. So her joining in season 3 was kind of like perfect, because they're like, she's like, hey, like, I can do it now. But she was actually supposed to be on the original lineup. I don't know if she was going to be on the original lineup, but she definitely heard back from casting. Like, she was going to move forward in the audition process, but she couldn't because of a family emergency. So I thought that was interesting. So like I said, we have the youngest ranging from like 22 and the oldest to 29. So this is our group of folks, excluding Dina, obviously, for the first couple of seasons. Let's get into where everybody was from. Who embodied this Guido culture? You know, where are they from? And what were their jobs before, you know, becoming these culture icons? What are some other words besides icons? Because, I mean, that's what they are. I mean, your culture icon. This is what they are. So Snooki was actually training to be a veterinarian technician, and she had delivered cows and stuff before, and she had 1 semester left, and she felt so guilty. I don't know if she talks about this on the show. Like I said, I have to go back and rewatch Jersey Shore, but she had 1 more semester, and she felt so guilty because she did miss classes or whatever. I don't know if she was doing the summer classes, because I know they only do Jersey Shore during the summer. But she had 1 more semester of classes, and she felt guilty because she did not complete her semester. So she eventually never became a full-on licensed vet technician. But she was at that point like volunteering or like working at one of the places. But she would just have 1 more semester left to officially like be able to do certain stuff. And Nicole was actually from Poughkeepsie, New York. I know she said that before, but also I was in my research, I was just like, where is Snooki from? Because Snooki has a very distinct look. Like, yeah, she does look like she tans a lot, but I'm just also like, she low-key look like she's something. Guys, she's from Chile. Santiago, Chile. Period. I don't know if she's been there or been back, but like, yeah, she's from Chile. Also, fun fact about where her name comes from. So she never went by Snooki. Her one friend called her Snooki one time as a joke. You know, she's filling out the application. What names do you go by? And she's put Snooki on there as a joke because her friend has used it before. But like, no one called her Snooki. And I guess it stuck. They wanted her to be introduced as Snooki Nicole, aka Nicole. Everyone kind of really had a nickname except for Angelina, Vinny, and Ronnie. You know, everyone kind of had a nickname though. Okay, so we have Pauly Del Vecchio. He was a DJ. Obviously, I already talked about that. But I also think he was a car salesman. Like, he was a hustler. And he was from Rhode Island. So you have your typical Guido right there. And then we get into Vinny. Vinny was actually planning on going to law school. And when he had submitted this, he actually had to like hold back on it. And a fun fact is that, I can't get into that yet because I'll get into it when I talk about how much they made. But yes, he was actually in law school. He was actually heading to law school because he had recently graduated. Vinny was actually from Staten Island. So like I said, though he did not look like the average Guido, he really did embody what they were looking for. They were looking for people from Long Island, Staten Island, New Jersey, like that culture. So he was actually from Staten Island. Staten Island is famously small, and I'm pretty sure he knew Angelina beforehand because they both were from Staten Island. And he was infamously living at home with his mom. But guys, like, give him a break. Like, it's literally like he was 22, you know, but I know everyone will clown him. I mean, we were still clowning him though, because he had been on the Jersey Shore. We knew you were making a lot of money, and he still was getting picked up to go to the shore from his mom's house. Like, he was still living at home for a good amount. He's very close with his mom. He was deemed the mama's boy, right? He was deemed the smart one. he was deemed the goody two shoes because he didn't look like a Guido. He wasn't tan. Like, he was the innocent one. But Vinny's about it. He would get the girls. But yes. So next we have Jenny Farley J. Wow. A lot of people don't know that Jenny actually had a graphic design business, but she was also bartending. That's where, she also applied at the nightclub. But where does J. Wow come from? So she was never called J. Wow before. The only reason she was called J. Wow is because the club she worked at, her friend would always call her Jenny Wow. Like on the mic, whenever announcing like who's bartending or whatever, like who you got to work with for the night, you're like, yeah, my good friend Jenny Wow. He would always say wow after saying her because he just thought she was like smoking hot, like this amazing. They were friends, you know what I mean? And so I guess she told like one time, I don't know what the story is. Well, the story was that so eventually she just shortened it at the nightclub because he would keep saying Jenny Wow. He would shorten it and he just started calling her J Wow. But it was specifically at that club. So when they were looking for nicknames, she's like, this is my name on there. That's where it comes from. J Wow was from Franklin Square, New York, but also I'm seeing Long Island in Staten Island, I think, or New York or something. But I do vividly remember her talking about Franklin Square. So I'm pretty sure she was from Franklin Square, New York, but she maybe was like bartending and stuff in Long Island. Angelina was from Staten Island. She was a waitress. Sammi, the sweetest bitch you'll ever meet. I don't know where she got that nickname from. Like, I'm almost upset. Or it's like her nickname was Sammi Sweetheart. And maybe it's because everyone thought she was a sweetheart. Let me see if I can Google it really quick. But Sammi was from Hazlitt, New Jersey. And like I said, she was 22. She was 22 when she was on Jersey Shore. But when she filled out the application, she was 21. Therefore, she had just graduated from college. She graduated from Will Patterson College. Samantha Ray Giacola was one of the main Jersey Shores. She is okay. So I guess she just called herself that, Sammi Sweetheart, because she is a self-proclaimed sweetest bitch you'll ever meet. Like, that's what she called herself. I don't know if her friends called her that, but that's what she went around saying, she was a sweet person or sweetest bitch. You know what I mean? Next up, we have Ronnie Ortez Magro. Ronnie was actually from the Bronx, New York. So that's a wild pick. I was shocked to see when I was doing my research that he was actually from the Bronx. He's from the Bronx, New York, and he was actually a real estate broker. So he kind of had connections. That's why he was always on that duck phone. That duck phone that was not supposed to be there. I'll get into that when I talk about the Location X. But he was actually a real estate broker, and that's why he was always making phone calls and stuff or like trying to make a deal. He was a hustler. He from New York, the Bronx. Then we got Mike the Situation. He was from Manalapan, New Jersey, but lived in Staten Island. And we know that he knew Sammi Sweetheart and he had a crush on her. And we also know he was an underwear model. He was in that kind of scene. Obviously, that's what he was living for. Finally, Dina. Dina was from New Egypt, New Jersey. And she didn't obviously join until season 3. Apparently, Dina was working at a restaurant at the time. So that's what they were doing before getting cast on Jersey Shore. That's what they were doing going into it. Let's talk a little bit about how we got to the Jersey Shore, the location, and all of that stuff. I said it seems as though Vinny was the one that gave them kind of the tip to name the show Jersey Shore and to really base it on, this house in Seaside Heights or whatever, like to really focus it on that boardwalk in Seaside Heights. And that's what really cemented the location for the group in Jersey, following this group of Guidos and Guidettes. The Jersey Shore ended up being the perfect place for the new crew and would soon follow the iconic mantra GTL, Gym Tan Laundry. And the viewers would have the opportunity to really watch the roommates just live Gym Tan Laundry, and then they would party on the side. You know what I mean? They found the house, Seaside Realty, by owner Michael Lowndy. And this is what I say about the fun fact about the duck phone. The duck phone So production had came in and was like, we need to get rid of XYZ. They were looking for a house to house 6 people, but they were just gonna like double up the beds and stuff or whatever. They were like, we just need like this house was perfect. They paid the Michael guy, can get the stuff cleared out within like 24 hours. They were trying to like film fast. And I think it was Sally Ann. She was like, this duck phone is like hideous. Like, I literally cannot look at this. Make sure this is out before filming. They filmed the pilot. Someone forgot to remove the duck phone. Now it's airing. And they're like, the duck phone has become this whole culture phenomenon for Jersey Shore. It is this symbol. It's this emblem. Like, you think it's Jersey Shore, you think of Mike the Situation, you think of Snooki, Pauly D. Like, but when you think of objects, you think of like cabs. You think of that duck phone, right? You think of duck phone, you think of Sunday dinner. Like, it's just certain things you think of when you think of Jersey Shore. So they could not remove it because it was in shot. It was just like, it kind of just looked like it belonged there. So that's a fun fact regarding the duck phone. It was not supposed to be there, actually. The casting was very secretive, but that's very common when it comes to reality TV. A lot of these reality shows are very secretive. You don't know if you're getting picked or not until the very last minute. And you could be in these waiting rooms, isolated in these hotels and stuff for a whole month, 2 months, and not even ever go on the show. I know someone from Love Island that was supposed to go on Love Island USA talked about how he was in like a holding hotel room, never got a chance to go on the season. Like, they got these bombshells ready, but the bombshells they never select everyone. So it's really just like a waiting game. So they were very secretive, so much that Vinny and Ronnie, Vinny was under the impression that this was going to be a True Life special. Do you guys remember True Life on, I think was it on VH1 or MTV? He thought it was going to be a True Life special about visiting the Jersey Shore. He thought it was going to be like a short documentary. He didn't know it was going to go that long. They basically so this is like some background of like how they sold it to like each different cast members. Like, obviously they didn't tell Vinny that it was going to be this whole thing. Like, oh, actually you're spending the summer here. Because he clearly thought it was just going to be a special. And they told Jenny that if she got it, she would be home in like 5 weeks. And if she didn't get it, she'll return home in 5 days. And then she said she never returned home. And they just like dropped off these keys to this house. And they're like, be at this location at this time. And then infamously, that's when I would say infamously, Angelina, she didn't get much details at all. They were basically like, you need to be down at the Jersey Shore at this location this day. Bring your stuff. And she didn't even think it was that thing. That's why she just threw her clothes in the trash bag, because she didn't have nothing to put them in. And that's when we get dirty Angelina, the trash bags, dirty hamster, whatever. Not the trash bags, girl. So production would end up freaking out though, because at the time all they literally had was footage of gym, tan, laundry. That's all the guys at least were doing. And at that point they just literally started labeling it GTL. It would literally just be hours of B-roll of them gym, tan, laundry. And that's when they started shortening it to GTL, which is what we know. Sunday dinners were also a huge thing that would soon become on Jersey Shore. And I will say, in comparison to the Hills, is like, we had like Sunday dinners was really this thing where they would come together, hash out the week's drama, or put that stuff aside to really enjoy a Sunday dinner. If you didn't make a Sunday dinner, which is really huge in Italian culture, I even think it's big in Black culture, like to have these family dinners, or you cook a big meal on Sunday. Like, Sunday kind of sets the tone for your week. So to see them kind of like still stay true to that in their Italian culture, like, hey, we still want to do these Italian dinners. This is what we grew up around. You know, the men would be on the meats, the women would be on the sides, or like the pastas, or even the men would be on the meats, because they would be making their lasagna and stuff. And they were very passionate about tomato sauce. It could not be canned. Like, you know, they would have a salad. Like, it would be a very Italian dinner. Like, it would just be very homey, family, and it was something the roommates would look forward to. So then that's where they got the Sunday dinners. And then they started following them out to the clubs. They were like, we need some drama. We want to see how you guys flirt. We want to see you guys dance, fist pumping and stuff. And that's how you really got the show. That's what it literally was. GTL, hookups, club culture, and then they would settle down and have a good sunny dinner. Keep in mind, though, they're also going into work. And that leads me into the salaries. Because the cast was able to stay at this seaside Heights home free of charge, room and board, I think production had probably paid the Michael guy to like, hey, I need you to leave your house for the summer. The trade-off though was them, working at the Shore store where it was like a t-shirt store, and that's where we famously get to meet Danny. So that was really the trade-off. You get to stay here room and board, but y'all gotta work while you are out here. You gotta do something. And that brings me to my next thing. It's like, because I'm telling you the ages, Vinny was 22. He was planning on going to law school, and he would have been supported by his mother because he would have been in law school. And, that was his next step naturally. And then you got someone like Ronnie, who was used to making money. He was a real estate broker. Vinny and Ronnie at some point had went to production and was like, we don't think we could stay this long. We need money. He's like, I was supposed to go to law school. And then, like I said, you got Ronnie going from he brokering his own deals to not making any money. And you're just supposed to be out here for the summer for 5 weeks. Like, it wasn't a fair trade-off to them. So that's when they're like, okay, go to the t-shirt shop. What you make is what you can keep. Was it a lot? No. They were paid eventually $10 an hour. And each of them was expected to show up for their each of them was expected to show up for their shift. That was the trade-off for them staying free room and board, and then them to actually like pocket some extra money. So it went from $10 an hour for them to $15. Eventually they would be making $20 an hour towards the end of the first season. So Danny was really nice about that. And all he just wanted them to do was literally show up for your shift. Like, he doesn't care, show up and be on time. Like, we all remember that was a thing. So throughout season 1, some of the cast also, though, would be paid from the clubs they would go to. Like Club Klarna was a big one that they would go to on the Jersey Shore, and they would be paid to essentially promote it on the boardwalk. So you guys remember them like just handing out stuff like go to Club Klarna. Apparently, like the club would like give them like $500 just to promote. And Benny said that was a lot of money to him. Like, you just give me $500 to promote for people to come to your club. Okay, so that's another way they made money on the shore, because guys, they did not make money their first season of Jersey Shore, even though, and I was trying to find it before I hopped on the mic. I was trying to find it somewhere in my notes. I thought it was DJ Pauly D that had negotiated some sort of money his first season, because he was a DJ. He he like knew like, I need to get paid. I couldn't find it. Let me know if you guys find it, but I could have sworn there was something in the news saying that DJ Pauly D literally negotiated. He was the only one that made money the first season, or maybe he's the one that negotiated like these club promotion deals. Like, he knew how to negotiate, because on a scale, when you think of Jersey Shore, there's a couple of people that are impactful that you think about. You think of Mike the Situation, and this is biased to people who I like, because I didn't even care for Mike the Situation, but I'm saying when you think about the Jersey Shore, you think about Mike the Situation, you think about Snooki, you think about Ronnie and Sammi. I honestly, I'm going to those 4 people. I'm like, what's happening in Ronnie and Sammi? Snooki being drunk somewhere, Mike the Situation is in a situation. Like, those are the 4 you probably think of. Next up, I would probably say, if I had to name top 5, it would be Pauly D. But somehow, by the end of the seasons, I can't get their salaries broken down season by season. I tried. I can't do that. But I was able to pull how much they were making by the end in complete, like their final season. By the end, Pauly D was making the most money. Him and Snooki and Mike the Situation. They were being paid the most. Those 3 were being paid $150K per episode. So they were taking home $2 million by their final season, season 6. And I'm pretty sure season 5 they were making around that same mark, probably maybe like just $100K, maybe not 150. Pauly D, Snooki, and Mike the Situation continuously were the top 3 to take home the most money. People are like, why was Mike getting paid so much? Mike coined all of the Jersey Shore phrases. Cabs are here, DTL or DTF, not DTF. Yeah, buddy. Everybody and they mama. I almost forgot. I think my friend was saying, yeah, buddy. Oh my gosh, in middle school or middle school, junior high. We say junior high. She will used to say, yeah, buddy. Like everyone and their mama was saying, yeah, buddy. Cabs are here. What is another one he used to say? He had some sayings. These are sayings that MTV would eventually be able to market in commercials and ads for Jersey Shore, the merch, the t-shirts. Let's look up Pauly D's infamous sayings. I really want to look that up. Oh my gosh, the Chick-fil-A peppermint milkshake is back, you guys. Let me see. Pauly D famous quotes. Let's say famous Jersey Shore lines. I should have did this. He coined all of the best phrases. That's why he was the top 3 to be making money. Let's go to this Reddit. Let's see who's what are they saying? Who's next? That was one. These are just like popular ones. I'm trying to see what he was really able. You got to stay fresh to death, I call it. Fresh outfit, fresh hair. Okay, I don't know if that's like a good one. Okay, maybe I can't. He had a lot. He was a walking catchphrase though. I really know, yeah, buddy. Cabs are here. I wanted to find more. You don't come in here on Sunday with a big banana, expect everything to be peaches. I somehow remember that. Okay, these aren't like, now it's not. He has some funny ones, but he was literally the marketing genius. Like they used his sayings for everything. We remember cabs are here, we remember yeah buddy, and we remember DTF mostly. That's what I feel like he was known for. I just try to look. So that's why he was up there with Snooki and Mike, because you would say Snooki and Mike brought the most drama. Pauly D didn't really stay in the drama, but he also had really good lawyers, apparently. Very good lawyers. And yeah, he knew that his likeliness was very important on that show. People loved Pauly D. They loved Pauly D and all his sayings. So that's why those were like the top 3 earners. The second group would be JWoww. JWoww alone was making 100K. She was known for being super real. She punched Mike in the face. She fought Sammi. Like, she was about it. So she was making 100K by her final season. Vinny would be next. He was making 90K per episode by his final season. And I'm shocked because Ronnie and Sammi both are making 80K per episode for their final season. Maybe production was upset with them because they kept going back to each other, and or maybe, I don't know. They put production through a lot. They put viewers through a lot. Like, it was a lot of back and forth, and you couldn't not watch it. But I am shocked that they were only making 80K per episode, because when I do think of Jersey Shore, I do think of Ronnie and Sammy's tumultuous relationship that I'm not even going to revisit in part 2. I'm going to talk about the different dynamics in relationships, who was sleeping with who throughout. But like I said, part 2 is really going to focus on life after the Jersey Shore, the friendships that came after that, and then I want to talk about the spinoffs. I don't really want to focus too much time on that cobweb of a relationship. Maybe I'll do a deep dive on their relationship one day, but I just know there was so much that happened in that relationship that I can't even touch on right now, because you know what? Sammy's happy. I don't want to be doing a deep dive on her ex-boyfriend when she just got married to the love of her life. You know what I mean? I'm not that type of girl. But Dina, who I often forget, I'm sorry. And I couldn't find Angie because I don't think she made enough to even have it reported. Because like I said, she left throughout the first season. She left again throughout the second season. Was only on for a couple of episodes. But Dina was significantly low. She's making about $40,000 per episode. So that's kind of like their salaries. And then let's get into their net worths. And that's kind of really the episode for part one. So DJ Pauly D is worth the most money because he is a DJ, but also, like I said, he's very smart with his money and investments. And he had the right team around him. So he's worth $20 million. He's worth the most out of the whole group. Now, you would think Mike would be next, or Snooki. Snooki, yeah, you would think them two would be next. Obviously, we know with Mike, he had the whole tax evasion, which I'll talk about a little bit on my part two. That's where all his money went to, because he was not reporting his full income and neglected to pay taxes for a long time. And we know he went to prison. I think it was like 2017. He went to prison nearly a decade ago now. For like a couple of years, maybe it was like a year. I think he did one full year. Him and his brother both did. And yeah, he ended up going to prison. So his network went down to 300K. Mostly probably because of the whole tax evasion thing, him having to pay so much money back, and then obviously all the court legal fees. Next up, though, after being worth the most would be Vinny. He's worth about $5 million, which is kind of shocking. And then Snooki and JWoww are both at $4 million net worth, and Ronnie's at $3 million. Sammi is also at $4 million, and Dina is at $2 million. Obviously, this is subjective. I don't know if we can ever really find someone's net worth on the internet. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, you probably could find mine. It's not much, but I'm just saying, I don't know. When it comes to like celebrities, like, I don't think we'll ever really know how much Beyonce and Jay-Z are worth. Like, you know what I mean? I don't think that information would be public, but I do know out of the whole crew, just from logistics wise, it would make sense that Pauly D has the most money, and it would make sense that Mike, the situation would have the least amount given his tax evasion situation, literally. But that was your part one of What's the Reality on Jersey Shore. Like I said, in part two, I'm going to talk about like the friendships, the relationships, who got in it with who. Maybe I'll talk about a couple of iconic moments, but I also want to talk about like life after Jersey Shore, how their lives were impacted. And I'm going to talk about the spinoffs that came from it. And yes, and then I'm going to obviously talk a little bit about Mike's tax evasion, but that is considered looped in with the life after the Jersey Shore. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys enjoy. Until the next time.